We got two game sixes tonight, but the one I'm most interested in is the Pistons and the Cavs. So I brought on some experts, one from the Pistons, one from the Cavs, to give us the inside scoop on what's going on in the series. We're breaking down all the details on today's All-NBA show. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllCity. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by a new esteemed colleague. He's actually second time making an appearance on the show. One of my favorite Pistons follows. He is, of course, out on Twitter at MotorCityHoops. It's Bryce Simon. Bryce, how you doing today?
What's up? How are you doing, Adam? Also, we've been able to meet in person. There's not a whole lot of people that I've podcasted with, either had on as guests, been a guest on their show that I've had the pleasure of meeting in person. I came up for the Pistons Nuggets games and a game, and we got to spend just a little bit of time chatting and all of that. I always feel like there's a little added whenever you get to, shake hands and look people in the eye and all of that. So
it's cool. The internet can be cool. I've met a lot of cool people through it. Like Twitter can be the worst place on earth, but I meet a lot of cool people, so you never know. And also, fellow tall, poor Mark Stein, man, the only guy not like 6'4", 6'5" that appears on this show. So we have a tall man podcast going on.
I love it.
All right, let's get into it, man. So I brought you on because this series, to me, I don't know how you feel, but I think that the Spurs are going to win tonight. I'm a big fan of this Timberwolves team, but I don't think they can solve Wemby. And so that series, to me, has intrigue in that the Wolves are still alive. We'll see if they can surprise me. But this series, the Pistons and the Cavs, I still feel like is a coin flip. I mean, the last game came down literally to the last second, the final second. Was there a foul at the end or not that could have swung the game? But all of these games down the stretch have been very close. And so I have no idea what to expect. Do you feel the same way tonight going into it, that it feels wide open for both teams?
I think I would agree, other than the fact, I think if somebody wanted to point to, hey, this is a little more inevitable, or whatever term you want to phrase, right? Like, is that Cleveland is undefeated at home in this playoffs in its entirety, and won, obviously, then the two games against Detroit just earlier in this series. So I think that's what a lot of people are pointing to, is Cleveland has just been so good in this series and have won 3 in a row in this series. And I think that I can understand a lot of people who think that it is going to end tonight. With that said, Detroit has been very good when their backs have been against the wall in the playoffs, right? And I think it is kind of what this team has shown even through regular season stretches where maybe they went on a few game losing streak or whatever, or Cade Cunningham missed games, whatever they were up against. So I will not count Detroit out, even though they're on the road tonight for game 6.
And we were doing this before we went live, me and producer Atticus, and I was trying to just guess what the line would be. I guessed 5. It's 4.5, and that feels
interesting.
Right.
Okay,
that's like it's a medium small line. And that's kind of what it feels like. I would pick the Cavs to win tonight. But at the same time, I think if the Pistons win tonight, I think they're going to win game 7. So there's this desperation that we get to see the Pistons play with. We, of course, saw it in the first round when they were down 3-1, played some of their best basketball. Maybe that'll repeat tonight. But either way, I think it's going to be a great game. So walk me through. Pistons win first 2 games. They're in control of the series. They lose the next 2, and then that last one felt like a very pivotal one. Just walk me through the big X's and O's evolution of this series, if you can. How did this series start, and what was it the Cavs figured out that allowed them to win these last 3?
I mean, I don't want to oversimplify things, Adam, but one of the biggest things has to be James Harden, in the play of James Harden. And listen, I know he had 22 points in game 1. A lot of those came in the fourth quarter when Cleveland made their run. He was not good in game 2 with just 10. And then I think he's been quite good over these last 3, including on the road in Detroit for game 5. Like, that's probably the one that maybe stands out as the most impressive because it was on the road, and Donovan Mitchell didn't have his best game ever. I will also say almost every one of these games was close in some capacity. Even those wins for Detroit, Cleveland made push. I thought Detroit was obviously the better looking team in totality, but Cleveland made pushes. I think in one of those games they tied it. One of those games they took the lead in the fourth quarter before Detroit was able to answer. In game 3, Detroit had every opportunity to win. They had every opportunity to be up 3-0 and they couldn't take advantage of it. And then game 5, as you mentioned, goes to overtime. Again, Detroit has a chance up. Everybody likes to say up 9 with 2:37. Donovan Mitchell literally scores a second later. So I always say they were up 7 with 2:36, and they just weren't able to close it out. So I think James Harden is the biggest thing. I don't want to get into this because I don't want Cavalier fans to yell at me and whatever. The free throw difference is this story. I'm not saying it's unfair. I'm not saying there's a conspiracy theory. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is there is a legitimate statistical proven fact that since game one, there has been a huge disparity in free throw attempts for these two teams. Whatever the reason is the reason, but it is definitely a story.
So let's dive into that because I think there is something to it. I think the numbers are like 100 to 54. It's like twice. They'd have twice the free throws, I think, throughout the course of the series. And Detroit plays physical. This has been an incredibly physical playoffs. Like the teams that play physical have had a lot of success, including the Orlando Magic in round one. I mean, it's an 8-1. It went 7 games. I would call that a success. But Cavs not fouling is kind of an interesting story because 54 is a very low number, and they aren't the most physical team. They have big bodies. Do you feel it's something that Detroit can do to tilt this? Is it a more aggressive trying to get into the paint even though there's not spacing? Is it something that they can do? Because I think they're going to foul, but can they draw fouls?
So I think that's the important distinction. To me, it's not that Cleveland is getting to the free throw line. I mean, the regular season numbers, they were 16th in the NBA in free throws to field goal attempts, and Detroit was last defensively in free throws to field goal attempts, right? Like, we know Detroit is going to put teams on the line. I think what people are missing as the conversation was Detroit was 5th in the NBA in free throws to field goal attempts in the regular season. This was part of their identity. And here's where we can get into a major storyline of this playoffs in general. Adam, you know who led the Detroit Pistons in free throw attempts per game in the regular season? Not Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren. Jalen Duren got to the free throw line 6.1 times per game in the regular season, only 3.3. Here are the two guys that aren't getting to the free throw line as much as they need to for Detroit to win this series. Jalen Duren and Ausar Thompson. And I've made the argument, Adam, I don't care if Ausar Thompson makes his free throws or not. Can you get Jarrett Allen in foul trouble? Yeah. Because they did in game one, and he wasn't a factor. And can you get Evan Mobley where maybe he's not as aggressive? Because Evan Mobley has had some sensational defensive games in this series. And so it's not even about them making free throws. It's about drawing fouls on those two guys. And with all due respect to Thomas Bryant, getting Thomas Bryant on the court, getting into that big man depth of the Cavaliers that they have not been able to do since game one.
I like this point because it was a huge note for me when I was watching game one is that Jarrett Allen, it wasn't just that he was in foul trouble. He picked up 2 in like 4 minutes. It was immediate, and it changed the entire rotation of it. And one of the things I think the Cavs have been able to figure out is being able to play 2 bigs, especially in the close. But to your point, this is why I don't think the series is over, because Detroit does have a spacing problem, and they were without Duncan Robinson the last game. It only compounds that problem, so it was like a super problem. But they're going to have a problem no matter what. What is concerning for me is that Duren and Ausar Thompson, both, they're not going to be floor spacers, and they're not going to have efficient series. But can they not be afraid of the ball? And that's what I think is happening to both of those guys right now is that, I brought this point up, I think, earlier in the week with Jason Timpf. Spacing is not just, being able to hit the shots. It's also being willing to cut to the basket hard. And right now, Ausar Thompson's almost cutting if he gets the ball, oh, please don't pass to me because if I get it, I have to do something with it. Same thing goes for Duren, where he just needs to go up and get a shot blocked 3 times a game because if you do that, it means you probably got fouled 2 times a game, so you have to be doing it. Both of those guys are not spacing the floor, in my opinion, the way that the Pistons need to, because spacing properly means hurrying to the spots, cutting hard through the spots, and being willing and understanding that if I get the ball, I just have to go up no matter what happens.
I think I tweeted this out. I think it was 2 games ago. Yeah, it was game 4 where Ausar Thompson was bad on both ends of the court, which does not happen very often. And what I said was, I can live with Ausar Thompson not being able to space to the corner and knock down shots. But I shouldn't say I don't matter. The Pistons can live with Ausar Thompson not spacing to the corner and knocking down shots. What the Pistons can't live with offensively is when Evan Mobley helps off of him on a Cade Cunningham drive and Cade finds him cutting on the block out of the dunker spot, Ausar not making them pay. He has, and here's where I struggle a little bit is Ausar is a 1% athlete in a league of phenomenal athletes. Yep. Just go attack. And if Mobley, to your point, if he blocks you twice but he gets called for a foul twice, to me, that's a win. That's better than what they're getting right now. I think he's looking to try to pass a little bit too much. They don't have the floor spacers for him to spray it out back to the three-point line. Just go attack the rim aggressively. And if people didn't watch Jalen Duren in the regular season, they may not realize, and I'm not, again, like I understand you can't watch all 30 teams as an NBA fan. Jalen Duren would face up opposing bigs. He would low rip them. He would Euro step them. He would find contact and he would get to the free throw line. And it wasn't just about the free throws. It was about putting those opposing bigs in foul trouble. They have missed that so much. And to your point, Adam, that's where their offensive gravity comes from as non-floor spacers and allowed this offense to function as a 10th rated offense in the regular season. Everybody acted like Detroit was one of the worst offenses in the NBA. They weren't. They were top 10. We knew there was going to be playoff issues. We knew that. But it's been amplified because those two guys haven't even shown the gravity and the impact that we saw in the regular season.
I think the guy Ausar Thompson should be studying this offseason is Jaden McDaniels and he doesn't have the pull-up mid-range that Jaden McDaniels have, which he didn't always have, but that's something that he has added to his game and has made him this dynamic two-way player. But what I like about him is he spaces the corner but rarely takes the corner. And he almost uses that as his launch pad. So instead of just staying there, here comes the shot. As soon as the pass is coming, he's grabbing it and going straight downhill, one dribble, and then he has the length and also a fear factor. Like, you know, we just talked about you might get your shot blocked once or twice. You might get dunked on. And so I think there's something too with Ausar Thompson where he could be so scary from that spot of just, I'm in the corner, I need to stay here, but as soon as the ball's coming, I know I'm attacking downhill and getting to the rim. And even, I say that in the offseason, he should study it. It really is one of the things that has to happen, I think, in Game 6, has to happen tonight. He has to be able to turn the corner spacing into rim pressure as much and probably even more than he just needs to take the open shot, because I don't actually believe in his open shot, neither does he. But I think he can get to the rim, and that's the guy. Jaden McDaniels makes a killing off of doing this.
Yeah, listen, I'll be quite frank. I don't have a whole lot of faith in Ausar Thompson ever being an NBA level, like hitting the thresholds as even a corner 3-point floor spacer. Not in the near future, at least. Like maybe 5 years from now, we can revisit this. I like the Jaden McDaniels idea because I think that's something I've been begging Ausar to do this all year. Just dribble to 8 feet, 10 feet, maybe 12 feet, jump higher than everybody else because you can, and shoot the basketball. Here's the other person I think he should study offensively, Draymond Green. And my argument is catch the ball with Evan Mobley 15 feet off of you and then dribble into a handoff with Duncan Robinson or Danish Jenkins or Cade Cunningham. And if you can get a good handoff and get a little piece of their defender, you know what's not there, Adam? Evan Mobley, because he's playing 15 feet off. Now, those guys have to knock down threes off a dribble handoff, but there are ways to attack a defender that's not paying attention to you. And it's not just catch and finish or offensive rebounds. It's the stampede attacks. It's the DHOs where they're not there to be helpers.
It's one of my favorite things to do now in my old age where I'm not quite playing my old man ball. I'm not quite the one-on-one threat before, but I do love that idea of if I catch it, my guy's off of me. It's a quick pitch screen because now the big has to step up. He's usually out of position. And even if he does, it's almost like attacking a closeout. He can't attack to close the gap and contain in space. And Draymond Green is obviously the poster child of that. Ausar Thompson is interesting because he has so many, he's pretty high level at some offensive skills.
Yeah.
But he's so low level at the one that unlocks everything else, shooting, that he has to get creative. I think he can do it. But it is one of those things where this is what the playoffs reveal to young teams is exactly how damning your weaknesses are. And for him in particular, that's the one. I will say, though, defensively, unbelievable. And this is the flip side of it. Unlike Duren, where we're going to talk here in a second. But defensively, the guy has proven to be one of, if not the best perimeter defenders in the NBA, and he has as tough of an assignment as anyone. The play he made at the end of Game 5 was a phenomenal to stay in front of the quickest guy on the floor and then be able to contest it into a way that it's a horrible possession. So his defense, it's weird because I think in the middle portion of the series, they almost had the should we play him, should we not play him dynamic, and they gave up big runs when he was on the court. But his defense is so good that, I mean, it's not a question, in my opinion, about playing him. It's just that his offense has to come through. But on his defense, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I think I've called him the best perimeter defender in the NBA, at least for this season. I think he had the best season of the perimeter defenders. I will say this, like I try to be very unbiased and fair. I thought game 4 was probably the worst defensive game I've seen from Ausar Thompson all season long. Like I called it out in my notes. I called it out on my podcast. I think it's fair he just was not good that night. He came back in game 5 and showed the value he brings. He had another play in that game where he like got a block on a mid-range jumper, and then Danish Jenkins saved it, and Ausar just took off in transition. He ended up getting fouled, knocking down a couple free throws. And so I do think one way he contributes to offense is he does drive transition, right, off of his defensive playmaking and all of that. Why I think he's special defensively, Adam, is he's not only good at the point of attack, but he's also disruptive. I don't think there's not very many players on the defensive end that can combine the solid, I'm just going to guard my man with the disruption of steals, deflections, blocks, all of those things. And Ausar Thompson is able to do that. His one Achilles heel on the defensive end right now is off the ball. He had some trouble staying with Desmond Bane off screens at times in that series. And then he will lose his man for relocations and those type of things. We've seen Donovan Mitchell get him on those a couple times as well in this series with the Cavaliers. But overall, I don't think there's many perimeter defenders better at, hey, I just need to guard you. And then also I can steal the ball. I can rotate block. I can do those things that disrupt an offense.
Which is part of why tonight, the series has had a lot of them come down to the very, very end, the last 3 minutes. And he's such an advantage in those situations because if you get to a situation where he's guarding one-on-one, late shot clock, you just feel good about, okay, we're going to force a bad shot out of this one.
Yeah.
And if a series comes down to 4 or 5 games that come down to the last 3 minutes and you have that, it's huge. Let's go to the big story, though, and it's Jalen Duren. Is he being exposed or is he just slumping? Because to your point, what was exciting about him this year was he did have, he was like catch and shoot, catch and dunk, or catch and dunk guy, roll hard, offensive rebound, whatever it is. But he added a little bit more maneuverability, the ability to rip through and make a little one dribble, one step move to get around the guys. But right now, none of that is there. He's not even catching the passes. And when I say he looks afraid to catch the ball on some of his dives, we've seen rolls to the rim where he's not looking or rolls to the rim where he's catching in a way that puts him out of position where he could have just caught it and gone right up. So is he being exposed or is this just snowballing and he's just now in a real big rut?
I think it's snowballing. I think it's a little of both. I don't want to cop out answer here. I'll explain why I say a little of both. I think it has snowballed because we talked about this over on our Pistons podcast. We've never seen his hands look this bad.
Bad.
I've watched every second of Jalen Duren's career and I scouted him in the NBA draft. Like I don't remember being worried about his hands the way we're seeing him struggle to catch passes right now. To me, he didn't lose that talent or that skill. That's some sort of mental thing that is snowballed from the frustrations of round 1 and all of that.
Yeah.
With that said, I think what I've at least felt and written about is I don't know that the handle and the moves and the finishing are quite tight enough and improved for playoff level basketball and scouting reports. They were good enough for the regular season, which was a major jump from what we had seen up to this point in his career. And then he came into this playoffs, which is a different role than what he had last year. I think that's an important thing to note. He was not expected to be the number 2 option in last year's playoffs against the Knicks. So for him, this was the first playoffs where he was in this role with this type of usage. And the skill just wasn't quite there. Like it's not quite enough. Does that mean he can't go to the summer and work on that and tighten it up enough and be ready next year? I think he can, but I think if you want to say exposed, I think that's what's been exposed is it just wasn't quite there. When the scout says he's going to low rip in this situation, he's going to face up and this is going to be his first step, when those scouting report things really hone in on the things you do best.
This playoffs, by the way, also I feel is most different from the regular season than any year I can remember covering, in part because of the physicality that's being allowed and even the speed. It's almost like the regular season has taken a step back in the NBA. It's become, more relaxed, more offensive focused, and the postseason has taken a step forward for the defensive end. So the gap between regular season and postseason is huge, and we're seeing a handful of players that are like this, but Duren is the one that's most high profile, because he's in a contract year and he feels and because the Pistons are number 1 seed, and it just feels like you saw the roster. It's going to be Cade and Duren and Ausar and fill in the gaps. And right now that is looking like a little bit more, a little more sketchy. Here's the thing though. Why isn't he getting second chance points? I mean, to have 0 is insane. And to me, if I'm having a rough game or series or something like that, one thing I know I can impact is the physicality of the series. Like, okay, everything else is shot. Let me just go grab rebounds, foul guys, screen hard, and just mix it up in the middle. But he's not even doing that.
It is weird. I will say, over the last couple of games, I feel like he's been going to the offensive boards, and you'll see him get like a fingertip on it, but not quite able to come down with it. It's kind of like the catching thing. He's just not quite finishing plays the way you would want. And then he'll do it for a stretch, or he'll have one of those beautiful, he had a spin move, I think, last game that was just beautiful on Evan Mobley. And then it's like, then it just goes away. It's so weird. Adam, the Pistons center rotation, this was not what I expected to be talking about in the play. Do you know who the fourth leading scorer in this series is for the Pistons in terms of points per game?
Is it
Paul Reed?
Yeah,
it is B-Ball Paul. So it goes Cade, obviously, then Tobias, Duncan Robinson, who, as you mentioned, missed last game, and then Paul Reed is number 4 in his 3 games played and 42 total minutes or something like that. Just insane stuff. But the other guy is, I thought Isaiah Stewart was going to be an awesome playoff big. We didn't really get to see him in the Knicks series last year. I thought Stewart's defense, we did see him knock down a couple threes finally last game. He hasn't been great. The fact we are talking legitimately about the option of starting Paul Reed in game 6 is crazy to me. I never would have guessed this would have been a storyline. And for what it's worth, I don't think we'll see that, and I wouldn't do that. But the fact that people are bringing it up is just, it's wild and really speaks to how this series has gone.
Well, even crazy just not bringing him out till the very end and then just playing him all the way through. I mean, the series shows you how much the reaching of just like, okay, we have to do something. Let's see what sticks on the wall. The last thing I want to ask you about, though, is Cade Cunningham, because whatever the numbers are, and I know there's been ups and downs and there's been ugly stretches, I walk away from the start of the playoffs to right now even more impressed with this guy, because I think that he is running with weights on his back, weights around his ankles, everything else. You couldn't set the table from a spacing standpoint worse for what he has to do. And yet I still think he's been very good. Now, in these last couple of games, I do think he's gotten rattled. I think the mental part of there's not space and I have to constantly take tough angles and fight through, trying to create something out of nothing. I do think it's taking a mental toll on him. And this is part of being a superstar is, once you get deep into a playoff series, the good shots go away. And now you just have to, every possession is a slog. But up until the last couple of games, I've just been so impressed with the way he's able to control calmly what goes on in the court, how well he reads things. Are you as impressed as I am with him? And, does it feel a little bit like it's fading with Dean Wade and Max Strus kind of getting under his skin with this pressure they're doing?
I am as impressed. I'll just quickly read this off. These are totals. First in minutes, first in points, second in field goals made, first in attempts, first in three-pointers made, second in three-point attempts, first in free throw makes, free throw attempts, assists, and turnovers. I only say those things to say the usage on Cade Cunningham is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think the most fair critique is the turnovers, right? And they drive me crazy.
He's had some bad ones.
As much as I will defend Cade Cunningham and have said for a while that I think he's the face of the franchise and he can be your best player on a title contender and all of those things, the turnovers have some of them are so bad. With that said, this is a guy who the efficiency wasn't great last year against the Knicks, and he said, I need to be in better shape next year. I think it's pretty darn impressive that we see him shooting over 40% from 3, something he didn't do well in that series. The fact that he had a collapsed lung and missed all of this time at the end of the regular season.
Not that long ago.
And is now playing 41 minutes per game in this series. I think he played 48 in that overtime game on Wednesday. He improved everything that he said he was going to outside of the turnovers. And the turnovers actually were better in the regular season. They just snuck up again here in the playoffs. I feel very confident. Like, I'm all about data collection. And that's where I've been the last couple of years with this team. I don't need any more data to know what Cade Cunningham can be for this team in terms of a legitimate Eastern Conference title contender and all of that, right? I feel very confident about who he is as a player. And the other thing is he does it on the other end. Like, he will sit down and guard. He has to take the James Harden matchup in some of these games. Like, that was one thing about Duncan Robinson not playing in game 5. Listen, they need Duncan Robinson, so don't get this twisted. But with Danish Jenkins starting, Cade actually got to start the game on Dean Wade. And my initial thought was like, man, he's going to have more legs at the end of the game because of that. Now, that didn't end up proving to be true, but he's had to take tough matchups in this series on the defensive end as well. So he is really, really good. I think Trajan and Detroit organization and all that should feel good about where he can lead them as now they collect data on the rest of the roster and how they need to do that moving forward.
And the data is going to tell you that you need strong release valves. I mean, this is one of the stories throughout the entire playoffs is, Minnesota, Julius Randle is the release valve. But if he's shut down, if he is not as impactful, then your whole team, you can trap Ant, you can make his life difficult, and the team's going to suffer behind it. Denver, Jamal Murray, shut him down. Now Jokic is the entry and the finisher. Cade Cunningham right now is the entry and the finisher on a lot of these possessions, and that's hard to do, to both set the table and finish it. But I think he's done an unbelievable job. And I mean, to me, he's one of, like, I don't want to put a number on it, but I probably have him higher in terms of players that I think are just most truly valuable to their teams because of his ability to carry so much of the load. Nonetheless, he needs a release valve, and unfortunately at the moment they don't really have one. Bryce, any final thoughts before I get you out of here? Any prediction or anything you're looking for tonight?
So, I mean, I said Pistons in 7 coming into the series.
Hey, you're on it.
Yeah, we'll see. I agree with you. I think if they find a way to win tonight, I am a little bit nervous about that. Cleveland's been so good at home. I will say this about Cleveland. I know you're about to talk about Cleveland, but Sam Merrill getting healthy for the rest of this series, I think, was huge for them. He's a major impact. His floor spacing. He had an incredible weak side flare screen in this game that got a teammate open. And Max Strus, and it's not just the shot making with Max Strus. He's been really good. I think the sneaky thing Detroit has to answer tonight is they have to have answers for the Evan Mobley short roll that has put them in rotation and then got guys open shots, or Jarrett Allen in the dunker, and the Evan Mobley inverted ball screen. Those are 2 specific actions I think people can watch for tonight to see how Detroit handles them. Like, Donovan Mitchell's going to get his. James Harden's going to get some of his. Can you slow the Evan Mobley stuff down whenever they go to those? So those are things I'm looking for defensively. I think it'll be a good game. I expect Detroit to come out with a ton of energy. I don't know where they'll be health-wise, Herter, Duncan Robinson, those guys, where they're going to be. But yeah, I'll stick with Pistons in 7. Let's go crazy here and see how it goes.
Why change it up now, man? I will say, I think it's a legacy game for Cade Cunningham in the best way. I don't think he gets knocked in any way if they lose tonight or whatever. But if you win, it is one of those things we'll probably remember, that this young in his career, he was go on the road, had a monster game, and kept the season alive. So it's always a fun one. He is Bryce Simon. You can catch him on the Pistons Pulse podcast as well as on Twitter at Motor City Hoops. Bryce, thank you so much for taking time.
Thanks, Adam.
All right, guys, let's take a break. On the other side, we're going to go to the Cavs, and we're going to talk to Danny Cunningham about what the Cavs can do. We'll be right back after this. Playoffs are underway, and it's the most electric time in basketball. On Kalshi, you can trade every single playoff game, every series, the conference finals, and the championship. Right now, let me see where the Pistons are at. I've got Oklahoma City at 60% chance. This is down. Oklahoma City is dropping. They're at 60% chance of winning the NBA championship. I think my value bet would be on San Antonio, who's at 21%, just up very, very slightly. What's cool about Kalshi is you can trade out of your position at any time. So on Kalshi, you're trading peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probabilities change, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use the code ALLNBA, all one word, ALLNBA to get get $10 when you trade 10. KALSHI, Kalshi. Trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. Also want to tell you guys about Shopify. What kind of dreams did you have when you were a kid? What about now? Do you know what you want to be, what you want to do? Do you have a side hustle that you want to get in on, or a full-time business? Well, you need to know about Shopify. It's the e-commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S. Shopify even powers the All City merch store. Shopify's got you covered with website creation, product descriptions, email and social media marketing, and more. And they have the AI tools designed to help you maximize sales. So if you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into... with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/allcity. That's shopify.com/allcity. All right, back here now, segment 2, and we go to the other side where we're going to get the Cavs perspective, and I brought in my Cavs expert, which is, of course, Danny Cunningham from the Locked On Cavs podcast. How are you doing today, Danny?
I'm well, man. I'm a little tired. The Cavs played every other day this entire month so far, so it's been exhausting, but I'm excited to be at tonight's game, certainly.
You have no idea, man, how nice it was to have yesterday off of games. It was the first time, I believe, the first time since the playoffs began that there hasn't been anything, and it was nice to come home and not have to watch hoops. But let's get into it, man. I just did it with Bryce Simon. I saw you were backstage, so you caught the end of that. But I'm going to start with your show, which I watched and prepped for this one, and you called Game 5's win the biggest win since LeBron left, the biggest win of this era. And the series isn't over, but yet I still look back and I go, I think you might be right, because that was a pivotal swing game. Now, it probably goes away if they lose this series. But one of the big questions I have about this is the Cavs' reputation since LeBron has left has been of being good but falling apart late. It feels like you believe Game 5 was evidence, maybe not proof, but evidence that this team truly is different.
Yeah, I think it is. And they have to go out there and I think confirm it on Friday night in Game 6. Like you said, if they don't go out there and close out this series, I think the good feelings that Game 5 gave that organization go away quite a bit, because you ultimately didn't finish the job of defeating the number 1 seed Detroit Pistons. But this to me is evidence that they are different. And I think that they're different from even the last round against the Toronto Raptors. They're different from who they were last year. Think about, Adam, how many times we've seen the Cavs lose that kind of game. There was Game 2 against the Pacers in the conference semifinals last year where they had a 7-point lead with 57 seconds left, and it ends on a Tyrese Halliburton 3 with less than 2 seconds left to give the Pacers a win, which is not like the Tyrese Halliburton shot we think of from last year's playoff run for the Pacers, but it's one of them. Yeah. And then think about Game 4 against the Raptors, where the Cavs are up by 8 with 4.5 minutes left, and they find a way to lose that game in regulation. Game 6, where they have a lead with 10 seconds left in overtime, and they can't get the ball in bounds, and then they turn it over, and then RJ Barrett hits that incredible shot. Like, the Cavs have been on the other end of that game so many times. So for them to be down by 9 with 2.5 minutes left on the road in a, I don't want to say like a do or die situation, but pretty close to it, for them to find a way to get a win in that spot, I feel like that is something. And there are always these moments. I'm a believer in this. There are always these moments with teams and players individually where they do something well and then they just become something different. And I think that Game 5 against the Pistons has a chance for that to be like the real growing up moment for the Cavaliers.
I mean, I love this take, and it might be accurate. You're right that there are a lot of it. As you're walking through all of these games, some of this is just pure narrative, right? Tyrese Halliburton hits his shot, so the narrative becomes what it is because he made that shot. If he misses it, is it different? And all of these ones that you just described kind of fall into that category. But the point is not just that the ball bounced in their favor this time. It's that they've been able to survive haymakers. Bad things have happened, and they've been able to bounce back from them, even falling into an 0-2 hole. But to me, there's a lot of guys, unlike on the Cavs side where I feel like we could whittle it, or the Pistons side, where I feel like we could whittle it down to 2 or 3 players. I actually think there's a lot of players that are the key to this series. But I think the number one player that has stood out to me, without question, has been James Harden. And it's not that he is finishing everything or that he has been the star, but I do think that he is the first in the chain, the sequence. He is the first guy that had to solve things. Horrible start to the series. But once he's figured out how to get the ball out of his hands against some of these traps and who his targets are in isolation, I feel like he has fallen into an extremely comfortable rhythm where now he's reading everything. So the action starts with him. You trap it. He gets the ball out in the perfect spot that allows the Cavs to attack downhill. And if you stop trapping and play one-on-one, he knows exactly how to attack the guys that he has to attack. So I think while other guys are finishing it and maybe have even been bigger stars, Harden had to be the one to figure his portion of this out first, and everybody was behind it.
100% agree. And I don't think that Donovan Mitchell gets going at the end of game 4 in the second half of game 4 without James Harden setting things up for him. And I think that while the turnovers certainly early on in this series were a big issue for Harden, and that was a big reason why the Cavs were down 0-2, and still think he had too many turnovers in game 5 in Detroit, like he has limited that. And that's a big part of the reason why the Cavs have been able to fight back in the series, because one of the things that I think that the Cavs, and this has been led by James, one of the things I think they've done over the past 3 games really, really well, more so in games 3 and 4 than game 5, but they've picked on Detroit's weak spots. And I think James has really led that, whether it's been Duncan Robinson defensively, who obviously didn't play in game 5, or Tobias Harris defensively. They've made life rough on Jalen Duren basically in just about every single aspect of the game of basketball over the course of this series. And James has a lot to do with all of that. And Donovan Mitchell is the best player on this team. I think like that's not a debatable thing, but James has kind of become the guy that makes them go a little bit. And I think it is impressive too, when you think about he's only been in Cleveland for 3 months, 3.5 months, whatever it's been since February, because he's still learning how to play alongside Donovan,
right?
Learning how to play alongside Evan Mobley. And he's played alongside guys in his career that have been better than those players, but he hasn't played alongside guys in his career that have been, I think, like still stylistically like those guys. And I think one of the keys of the series too has been the playmaking that Evan Mobley has shown in the past couple of games. Like in game 5, James Harden wasn't the one that led the Cavs in assists. It was Evan Mobley with 8 assists, and a lot of those are coming in the short roll, and a lot of that stuff is because the Pistons have had to decide, okay, we need to maybe trap James Harden, or we need to trap Donovan Mitchell. And Evan Mobley becomes the guy that's playing in a 4-on-3 situation and is making the right play over and over and over again. But I don't think that they're in this position. And I know that James went out and scored 30, but in game 5, but I don't even think it's about that. I think it's about all the other stuff that he's done that has really made this Cleveland offense click in the last 3 games.
So here's how I look at it. And tell me if you watch him closer, so I might be off on this, but it's hard to fake. It's hard to like pretend you're in a playoff setting in the regular season. And in the regular season, the idea of Harden and Donovan Mitchell are they both can do the same thing, which is great because now you have 2 of them, but could it be a problem because they're the same guy? And I think in the regular season, that's more or less true. You just have these 2 attacking on-ball guards. But I think this series and really this playoffs has evolved to where Harden is the entry and Donovan Mitchell attacks after that. And then offshoots of that is Mobley, I don't know. When I say I don't know if you can fake this in the regular season, they have unlocked something. I was hoping Mobley would continue to struggle because I wanted him to become available this summer because I'm such a believer in his. And I don't think that's going to happen anymore. But you can't fake, like, if a team's not trapping you, you're not getting the ball out in the short, or not even a short roll. It's really like catching above the 3-point line and attacking. You can't do that unless teams trap you. And in the regular season, teams aren't going to overextend and trap like that, on a random night. But it is nice to know that now you have Donovan Mitchell as a release valve, who's elite at attacking the 4-on-3. And you have Mobley, who's now a great decision maker in that spot. Unlike the Cavs, where we just talked about they don't have release valves, the Pistons, the Cavs have multiple. And I think that's a huge revelation. But Mobley's ability to make decisions and finish plays in that spot to me is by far, the biggest discrepancy between the 2 teams, what you're getting from Duren and what you're getting from Mobley and his versatility.
I think the biggest difference is that the Cavs have more playmaking than the Pistons do, because Harden is, for all of the ways we think about James as this scorer, this guy that gets to the free throw line at an incredible rate, which, he does do those things. He's also, at this point in his career, I think an elite level starting point guard with the way that he's able to create for others. Like there was this one pass that he had in the pick and roll to Jared Allen, and Allen finished it with an and one. I think the foul was on Tobias Harris in game 5. And maybe it's just the angle that I had sitting in Little Caesars Arena, but I looked to my left and right and I'm like, how did James make that pass? And I think having that has really unlocked some things for Cleveland's offense, because now it's not just that they've got James that can be a play starter and a play finisher. Evan Mobley can be a play starter and a play finisher. Maybe like that middle guy, maybe you don't want him initiating the offense quite as much in the postseason as you do, but he can. but he also can be that middle guy, that playmaker. And then Donovan Mitchell, to me, is maybe not as much of a play starter for others, but he's an elite level finisher, and he's been a guy that has been able to create for himself at times. Obviously, we know what he's capable of as far as scoring goes. Hit some big shots at the end of game 5 in overtime after having what I thought was a pretty miserable first 4 quarters of that game. But again, I think James and Evan, while they're not the best players on this team right now, I think that those two are the guys that they make everything go. And without them, I don't think they're anywhere close to having a 3-2 lead in this series.
And then defensively, I think one of the things that's working, as great as Cade is, but the Cavs have been able to throw some looks at him that, and they're doing the right thing here, because sometimes you have a defender that's like, just try to shut him down, take him away, smother him, whatever. They don't have guys that can do that. But they have guys that can like take risks, and you have backline rim protection that even if you gamble for steals, you're pressuring and you gamble for steals, he still has to get by that and then get to the paint and try to finish over guys because the kickouts aren't there. And so Max Strus, Dean Wade, I like what those guys are doing, and they're not even trying to contain him. They're trying to attack him and just to get him off rhythm. And I think it's worked. He's looking a little fatigued. He's turning the ball over. And more than anything, I just think his rhythm is off. He doesn't get to play at the rhythm where he feels the game or this or that, because he constantly has these little, it's like little chihuahuas biting, nipping at his ankles. That's kind of what like Max Strus, that's how he plays. It's just very annoying. Yeah. He's trying to just constantly stab at you. And I just think that they're doing a great job of exactly the type of defense they need.
I think that they've accepted that Cade at times is going to go out there and make some tough shots, and he has absolutely done that over the course of the series, right? Like, you don't get to 39 points in game 5 without doing that. But I think the key here is that the Cavs have made every single thing that Cade's gotten difficult. They've not just handed him anything and say, you know what, for this 5-minute stretch, we're not going to be able to have a good defender on you, and it's going to be okay, and you're going to be able to heat up and get in rhythm. Like, even when he's gotten to rhythm at times, I think he's done it against good defenders. Now, Dean Wade, to me, is the guy that I look at as a key here. While Cleveland's offense is not what it needs to be when Wade is on the floor, defensively, they're so much better when they have him as that like elite level wing defender. In game 5, the 19 minutes that he and Cade Cunningham were both on the floor together, or just under 20 minutes it was, Cade only scored 10 points on 3 of 9 shooting. Like, he played 48 minutes, and for basically that third or half, whatever you want to call, of the time he was on the floor, he wasn't very effective, and Dean Wade had a lot to do with that. They've really made him work, and I think that he has looked, at the end of some of these games, he has looked exhausted, and that's why he's leading this series in turnovers, despite some bad James Harden performances in that specific category earlier in this series. That's why at the end of game number 4, or game number 3, I believe it was, he had those 3 turnovers right in a row. The one where Max Strus jumps up and catches the inbounds pass, one in a pick and roll situation that Jared Allen steals, another ball thrown out of bounds. Like, I think he is being worn down physically and mentally throughout the course of these games. And I think that's a big part of the reason why the Cavs have been able to, late in these games, find a way to will these out or like make more plays down the stretch, because Detroit doesn't have other guys to initiate the offense at the level the Cavs do. They don't have multiple guys that can create for themselves and others. Detroit has Cade, and like, he's been the best player in this series, but after that, I think there's been a pretty big drop off, and the Cavs have taken advantage of that defensively with how they've guarded him.
Mental fatigue is one of those things that I think the average fan almost scoffs at, like how exhausting can something be. But every athlete talks about it, especially every player that is in a position like Cade is, where it's like you don't get a second where your mind doesn't have to be juggling a bunch of different things. You ever see those videos of guys that like juggle Rubik's Cubes while solving them? And you just think, like, how could your mind balance like all of the different things that have to go into that? But that's kind of what a person like Cade has to do. They have to be doing 8 different calculations every time down the court, and it just wears on you over time. And I think the Cavs have done a good job of making that part of his life as hard as possible. Don't give him a second off. Constantly attack him on ball, and then just be on point with your rotation, so that even if he does solve questions 1, 2, 3, and 4 in a possession, he still has to make tough shots. And I think the Cavs have just done an incredible job of this. Here's my big question, though, for you. I talked last week, and Pistons fans got mad at me. Going into round 2, I said I felt like the Knicks were discovering exactly who they were, the Thunder know who they are, and the Spurs are discovering who they are. And I didn't include any other teams. I don't think the Cavs are here yet. But part of me, if they win tonight, especially if they win big, it's 4 games in a row against the number 1 seed, I think there are signs that the Cavs are actually coming together to be the team that they need to be. And if they lose tonight, maybe that's off the table or whatever. But to beat the Knicks, if you advance, you're going to have to be your best self. Do you feel like the Cavs, who didn't have Max Strus for almost the entire year, got Harden halfway through the year, got guys like Merrill back and have had guys in and out of the lineup, Jared Allen in and out of the lineup? Do you think this is you're watching this team and you're going, they're actually getting better game by game at figuring out exactly who they are and how they win?
100%. I think that this team is different from the team that played the Toronto Raptors in the first round. And that was a series that went 7 games that I don't think should have gone 7 games. I think the Cavs screwed around a little bit in game 4, and that's why they lost that game. Like, that to me should have been a series that ended in 5 or 6 games at most. And the fact that it went to 7, I looked at as a bit of an indictment on this team and thought, you know what, I just don't know how serious I can take them in the next round if they couldn't figure out a way to beat the Raptors a little bit quicker. But I do also think, and this was some of the messaging from the team, that they felt that going through that experience was something that was going to make them better, that was going to make them mentally stronger, that was going to give them more information on who they actually are. And I think that's an easy thing to say when you win that series. And then when they get to game 5 and the way they win that game against Detroit, it's kind of hard for me to look back at that and disagree. I don't know if they're able to do that without going through what they went through against Toronto. And this is a team that, like you said, still fairly new. Max missed the first 67 games of the season. James wasn't a member of the Cavs until February 2nd or 3rd, I think it was. Like, they don't have a lot of time
the
together.
Big 4 guys only played like 5 games together or something like that. It was a ridiculously low number.
Adam, they had 41 different starting lineups this year in the regular
41?
season.
Wow.
Which is, I believe, the most ever by a team that won 50 games in the regular season. Like, they did not have their entire team together at any point all season. They had 0 games until I think it was game 3 against the Raptors where their entire roster was available, which is, truthfully, I do think Kenny Atkinson probably deserves more credit than he got for managing the regular season the way that they did. But this is a group that's learning out how to play together in the biggest moments when the lights are starting to get brighter and brighter with each passing game. So I think that they're a better team than they were. And I think that they're figuring out their identity. I believe it was Joe Varden of The Athletic that asked this question to Kenny Atkinson at some point in the first round, like, do you know what your team's identity is? And he basically said, to be determined. We're not sure yet. And that was the right answer in the time. But I think that we are figuring out slowly what the identity of this team, one that can make you work defensively, that at its best has an elite level offense. And is that going to be good enough to win game 6 on Friday night? I tend to think so. Is that going to be good enough to maybe beat the Knicks in the next round? Should they find a way to win one of these next 2 games? We'll have to wait and see. But like, I think that there is no debate that this team is better right now than they were 3 weeks ago.
The last one I have for you here is about Evan Mobley. And if they're going to go for, I mean, they can win tonight if he has a mediocre game or whatever. I think that is possible. But if they're going anywhere else, they're going to have to get the best version of him. But we're seeing the best version of him more frequently right now. And I like Evan Mobley a lot, but I also find him frustrating because his ceiling is always apparent and rarely touched. I do wonder if this is the playoffs where he's finally tapping into that a little bit. And a lot of this with Mobley is just like aggression and confidence. I think he's naturally a passive guy. Like, he's naturally just trying to fit into whatever the team is doing. And basketball is a weird mix of fitting in and standing out. And I think for him, he just looks a little bit more comfortable understanding that this is my moment. This isn't about where's the right read. It's like, I have to be the one to put the pressure on the team right now. And so, like, I joked because I genuinely was looking at Mobley as like my top target of, hey, if things go really south for the Cavs might blow it up. Mobley might be available for some big swap. But I just feel like right now there's hope. Probably, and I'm curious your opinion. Is there more hope as a Cavs fan right now that Mobley might be actually finally tapping into his true potential over these last couple games, and hopefully that'll carry him forward into this game 6 and beyond?
Oh, I think there has to be. And when I mentioned the like growing up moment for the Cavs, maybe being game 5, like that's Evan Mobley.
I was going to say, it's kind of him. Who else is it?
Yeah.
Really? It's
well,
just
I mean, I do think Donovan not having been to a conference finals matters in that situation.
Sure.
This group as a whole not getting over the hump matters in this situation. But go back and think about that 9-0 run the Cavs used to close regulation. Donovan Mitchell got a layup on a broken play, and the Cavs were down by 7, and then it was an Evan Mobley dunk. It was an Evan Mobley three-pointer, an area where he struggled this year. An Evan Mobley free throw, 2 Evan Mobley free throws where he struggled this year. Like, Evan Mobley was the one that tied that game up, and he has consistently throughout this postseason, I think, stepped up in some really big moments. Now, not every game has been great, and you're 100% right that he's a frustrating player at times because he is not playing to his ceiling frequently enough. But I think this postseason on both ends of the floor, because he has been elite defensively throughout this series, on both ends of the floor, I think he has shown what he's capable of. And you're right, they can win a game against Detroit with him being mediocre. I would like to see him, though, carry over those final minutes of regulation in game 5 and game 6. And just like this for him can be the I have arrived type of moment. And I think that should be one of the most exciting possibilities for Cavs fans.
I don't want to put you in the awkward position, but I am going to ask just really quickly, if you were to win, what is the story with the Knicks? Like, how are the Cavs and Knicks? How does that matchup look if it is the matchup we end up getting?
So one of the things that, and the Knicks are playing obviously better basketball right now than they have at any point this season. And I was not a believer in New York going into this postseason, but the way they handled Philadelphia made me a believer, certainly at the end of that series and even the end of the Atlanta series. I do wonder how the Knicks are going to be able to defend the Cavs, though, because they obviously have a weak spot defensively in Jalen Brunson, and Karl Anthony Towns is not a good defender either. And Karl has had this incredible postseason so far where the Knicks have used him as a playmaker more, like his assists are way up and all those things. But they've not played a team, and I'm not trying to say that the Cavs are some juggernaut defense because that's not true, but the Knicks haven't played a team that plays with two bigs that play defense at the level that Jared Allen and Evan Mobley do. So historically, Karl has struggled against the Cavs. Evan Mobley has taken him out of a lot of matchups, and I think that it's going to be a unique challenge for New York's offense against Cleveland's defense. We'll have to wait and see, but I also wonder how often are the Cavs going to try and attack Jalen Brunson in the pick and roll, because they've got multiple guys that can handle it. They've got multiple guys that can run that. And like, if the Cavs are going to give the Knicks problems, that's where I think it needs to be.
I think it would be a better matchup than the Pistons would with the Knicks. I think that it would be a little bit more interesting, but you know, we got to get through a fantastic game 6. I'm glad it's happening on a Friday night, quite frankly, because it feels like a Friday night kind of game. I hope you enjoy. You're going to be at the arena, I assume, tonight?
Oh yes. I am exhausted. I don't know what city I'm in right now, but I know I'll be inside Rocket Arena tonight.
He is Danny Cunningham. You can check him out on the Locked On Cavs podcast. Danny, thanks so much for taking some time.
Thank you for having me, Adam.
All right, let's take a final break here. On the other side, I want to talk very quickly about some teams whose formula I think needs to be reset, and then we'll look at our FanDuels of the weekend on the other side. FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right, turn $5 into $250 in bonus bets just for getting started. And when every possession matters in the playoffs, FanDuel makes it easy to get closer to the action. From player props on your favorite stars to all the tools you need to back them up, FanDuel puts player research right at your fingertips so you can check stats, trends, and matchups all in one place and make your picks with confidence. It's everything you need all in one app, so don't miss your shot. Head to FanDuel.com/allcity to get started. FanDuel, play your game.
Must be 21 or older and present in select states. For Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.
All right, back here, the last segment of the All-NBA show, very short one. I just wanted to talk about the playoffs do reveal a lot of things about teams, and sometimes they tell you that your formula is wrong. Sometimes you look at it and just say, okay, we need a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. But sometimes it tells you what you're building is probably incorrect. So I have some teams that were either playoff or play-in teams. I had to get one play-in team in here. Actually, two play-in teams. No, yeah, I got two play-in teams in here that I think the formula is off for them. And I just wanted to give them here in sort of no order at all. First one is, I think, the Denver Nuggets. You know, I've talked about this earlier on in the year, but I think that their formula of Murray and Jokic is likely expired. I think that you can win with that one, but the margins become so thin around it that you need athletes, ball handlers, and defenders out of your other three spots. Well, that's a very high value player. You can't have anybody that's like, you couldn't even add an Ausar Thompson type guy who's a great player, but you're like, yeah, but his deficiency completely ruins it. So I worry that Jokic and Murray, the league might have gotten too athletic for the two of them. and I look at their formula and just kind of question it going forward. And they just need another ball handler or multiple ball handlers. If you are going to stick with Jamal Murray, you probably need 2 or 3 other ball handlers on your roster. And again, when you're trying to fill out and check too many boxes, it becomes tough. So I do wonder about Denver. I'm not saying it's a certainty, but I do think that their formula is no longer as valuable as it was before. I think the Philadelphia 76ers are on this list as well, in large part because as great as Joel Embiid has been in his absolute prime, I think defenses now, it's not the same where you can just funnel guys to Joel Embiid, have him block shots and play that style of defense. It's the modern game right now, and when I say modern, I mean right now. Even 3-4 years ago, this wasn't the case. But right now, there seems to be too many teams that can attack from too many directions that just being able to play a drop coverage with a big and have him scare people away, unless you're Victor Wembanyama and maybe even Rudy Gobert, unless you're those two guys, I don't think it works. And then the only way it works is if Joel Embiid is able to punish on the other end. I think that given his health and given the pace of play, there are certain players that I just don't think can make it 4 rounds. So now you look at the Philadelphia 76ers and say they have these 2 really quick dynamic guards. They've got Paul George and they have Joel Embiid, but I don't think that formula works anymore. And I worry that they're going to have to make a major pivot. I think the Orlando Magic, we knew this one probably coming into it, but they're just too much defense. The physicality works. The question about Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero, look, they almost got out of the first round, and I think Magic fans would say, hey, we almost did it. We had some injuries, this or that. Unfortunately, sometimes too many years go by where you don't get to really see your team fully healthy. In fact, I would even make the argument that right now, expecting any team to be fully healthy for a full playoff run 3 years in a row is almost like, what are the odds? OKC is, I mean, they have been able to survive without J-Dub, so you can't even say they've been healthy. But what are the odds like San Antonio? They look like a juggernaut right now, that they're going to have a healthy playoff run this year, next year, the year after. It feels so unlikely. Somewhere in there, you're going to suffer some kind of injury. And then if you have guys that it's happened to in the past, you might just have to look at your formula and say, we're not going to get a clear picture of what's going on. Orlando needs a better balance between offense and defense and size and offense and shooting. And I think they're going to have to mix with their formula a lot. And then the last 2 are really just play-in teams. I think we all knew. The Miami Heat were a great story early on, and the spread it out, everybody attacks, everybody can beat you off the dribble with handle. I actually think that formula works, but you have to have better players for it to be more sustainable, and they just don't have it. So I'm curious what the Miami Heat try to pivot to, because I don't feel like they're a team that can count on marginal wins and maybe a couple free agents. I think that they're going to have to go back to the drawing board. And then lastly, the Clippers. Everybody knows this. Even the Clippers know this. They've gotten out a little bit scot-free, but I think the era of the team that they have been building for the last handful of years is officially over. I certainly think that is the case with Garland, but I don't expect the Clippers to be able to team that just like, for the last handful of years, they've retooled. Let's add some new, even veteran players. I just don't think that they're anywhere close to what they need to become, and so they're likely going to have to hard pivot into something completely different. If you have another team that you think their formula has expired, no longer pertains, let me know in the comments. I'm always curious what everybody else thinks about some of these teams that have flamed out in the playoffs. And lastly, let's go to our FanDuel Duels of the Night. This is presented by FanDuel, of course, our presenting sponsor. And we don't have the Saturday and Sunday games yet because we don't know what the matchups are going to be. But we do have Spurs-Wolves, the line -5.5. I mentioned it earlier. The Pistons-Cavs, 4.5. I'm going to take the Cavs tonight, and I'm going to take the Spurs. And I would not be surprised if the Spurs win big. I actually just think that the Spurs have figured out some things against Minnesota, and I don't think Minnesota has a solution for Victor Wembanyama. So as long as he is on the court tonight, I think the Spurs are going to dominate that one. That does it for today's show. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Special shout out to Bryce Simon and Danny Cunningham. Both of those guys passionate and very knowledgeable, locked into what their teams are doing. So I appreciate them, and I appreciate you guys tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed them. Make sure you follow their work as well. Motor City Hoops on Twitter, the Pistons Pulse, and of course Locked On Cavs for Danny Cunningham. Legs is back. Actually, Mark Stein is back on Sunday. Legs back on Monday, guys. So we will be back to regular programming next week. Hope you enjoy your weekend. We'll see you then.
We all silly like the mayor.